Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 3 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Hello Jason, do you think that it's a good idea to train full body 5 times per week with only 2 sets per exercise, Monday to Friday, doing 4 exercises, example, squat, bench, row, etc., and varying the intensities 2x5, 2x8, 2x15? Thanks. I don't know, man. I think that would be all over the place. I don't know that if I was going to do that high of a frequency of full body that I would be varying rep ranges to that degree, like doing undulating periodization. It's really up to you. I'm not saying you couldn't make good gains doing this. You probably could. But, I mean, like, for example, look at what I'm doing. I'm training full body 3 days a week with 3 work sets of everything most of the time, and doing a little bit of greasing the groove in between, all right? So, and I'm doing, what, 5 exercises per day? 5 exercises. And I have access to limitless training equipment. I mean, guys, I'm sitting here with 900 pounds of Rogue plates and 3 different barbells in my bedroom. I mean, I can do whatever I want. So my point is, if I thought what you're saying would work better, I would probably do that. But I'm actually fine just doing this full body 3 days a week right now while cutting. But I guess my point is that as far as undulating it to that degree, look, if you want to run concurrent in 2 different rep ranges, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But undulating periodization has not been found by doing 3 to 4 rep ranges a week. It has just not been found in any of the literature to give you a single drop more muscle mass or strength. So I think you're just being overly complicated and random at that point. I don't think it's really necessary. I don't think it's going to work as well as you think it will. I mean, you can give it a try. But I think you need to focus more on just better programming instead of just being that random with your intensities. And again, trying to do it the way that you're doing it. Why don't you just start with full body three days a week and see how that goes, and then shift into the 5 and see how it compares in terms of your progressive overload and see if it actually works better for you or not. All right, next question. Hey Jason, so in light of your V-Shred rep range response video, I'd fancy eventually being in and out of the gym in an hour, 3 days a week, full body. Would you recommend switching to 4x10 or 5x10 after reaching your 100 pound pull-up, 200 overhead press, 300 bench, 400 squat, 500 deads? Still running the same 3 exercises per day system, obviously. Thanks again. No, man. I mean, 5x10, when you're strong, 5x10 on big exercises, I think that's a lot, man. Especially 3 days a week. I mean, 5x10 is stuff that I would recommend for twice a week type training, meaning if you're going to squat twice a week, bench twice a week. 5x10 and stuff is fine. 4x10. I would not do that sort of volume and rep range for a 3 day a week full body. I just wouldn't. I would keep the reps a little bit lower, keep the weight heavier. Maybe do 3x5. 3x8, something like that, I think is going to work a lot better for you once you build your strength base. Or you could go into some concurrent training later if you wanted to rotate through rep ranges and do some higher rep days. But as far as just maintaining or building more size and strength once you reach those numbers, I would rather see a little more weight on the bar, and I don't think you need quite that much volume with 5x10, just me personally. But you know, again, you're asking my opinion, so that's what you're going to get. A lot of people would disagree with that and say, well, no, I don't agree with you. I don't think that's ideal. But again, I think you'd be a little bit stronger, and again, you'd be out of the gym just as quick with 3 sets of 5 to 8 as you would 5x10. All right, next question. Greetings, Jason. I hope you're doing well, and also that I'm not late with my question. Clearly not. Do you think one can still maximize size and strength benefits of the deadlift if only performing deadlift singles, like 6 singles per workout, obviously with gradual progressive overload? I'd label myself as a late intermediate, honestly, out of laziness. Recently, I've been doing exactly that. I prefer to walk out of the gym charged more than fatigued, which I found really benefits my mood as well, and heavy deadlift sets can be fatiguing as hell. Do I shortchange my potential gains from deadlifts because of this? What do you think? By the way, still squatting heavy every session with 5s though. Thank you, Jason. If you were only deadlifting, I might be more concerned. But look, if you're doing 5s on squats every single workout, and then you're doing moderately heavy singles, multiple singles on the deadlift afterwards, I think you'll be just fine maximizing your deadlift. If anything, in my experience and that of many, many coaches out there, submaximal deadlifts are really necessary to ingrain your technique, and singles are fine. Even singles as light as 85 to 90%. So let's say your max is 500, right? Let's say you can deadlift 500. doing singles as light as 425 up to 455, something in that range, will actually build your deadlift just fine. Particularly if you are doing a bunch of fives on the squats, you're getting your training volume there. Most of the same muscles are working. If you're getting any middle and upper back work on top of it, like you're doing pin leg rows or pull-ups or any of that stuff, you'll be just fine. You'll build your deadlift just fine with singles, even as light as 85%. Perfectly acceptable. I don't think you're going to have any problems. I say go for it. I say go for it, brother. All right, next question. Your thoughts on people unracking weight before squatting backwards. That is, unracking and then walking forwards, then after finishing fatigue walking and putting it backwards. Now, there's some gym bros, half squatters, who do that in my gym. Since the rack compared to the bar is wide, the margins for putting it in the rack are small. They try to put it back one part of the time, looking in the front mirror. The back seems to twist and looks like it's cause for injury. Some novice girls, also half squatters, have also done that. Just looks like an injury hazard conditions. All right, this is what I would describe again as another example of just leapfrog and grab ass in the gym. Sheer stupidity. Sheer stupidity. And again, someone who believes everyone should be squatting and deadlifting. People who do stupid stuff like this are the reason squats get a bad name. Realistically speaking, there's a reason we back up on the unracking and then walk it back in afterwards. You're fatigued. You have a heavy weight up on your back, and you're a lot fresher before you do the set than you are afterwards. The walking it backwards is difficult. And because you're walking it back, you don't have to set it into a rack on the walkout. You just have to get into position. It's easier. There's less technical stuff involved with it. It's just easier in general. Whereas in backing it into a rack is already hard enough. And if you're doing that after you squat, these people are just stupid. They're morons who basically are going to get what's coming to them. This is called Darwinism. You know, when people are really so stupid that they do things that's going to hurt themselves, that's, you know, again, unavoidable. You're dealing with the lowest common denominator, because honestly, anyone who would actually come up with doing this and think it's a good idea, you just got to question their mental faculties at that point. I mean, let's be realistic here. It's just stupid. And there's no benefit to doing it other than, I don't want to see myself in the mirror. Well, you can squat with your eyes closed. You don't have to see yourself in the mirror. You notice I don't have a mirror in my weight room for a reason. But again, it's absurdity. Yeah, you should back it out when you unrack it and then walk it back in forward. That's the correct way to squat. That's the safest way to do it. The way they're doing it is dumb. And the fact they're doing it with half squats means it's a weight heavier than they can even squat, which causes the risk of injury to go up even more. So yeah, I've seen people do this, and again, it's absolutely absurd. All right, next question and last question of the week. Hi Jason, been running some orc mode style training for about 3 months now with fantastic progress. I've recently started doing 3-inch deficit deadlifts and I love them. I find that having to squat down lower, I'm using more quad. My question is, when I go back to normal deadlifts, do I need to try and squat down lower to get more quadricep drive, or just go ahead and get in the same position as normal? Thanks, coach. Here's what I would say. You might want to even make sure that you need to be squatting down as deep as you are. Because for me on deficits, because I don't really change my hip position much, and sometimes you're forced to a little bit depending upon the size of the deficit, I find I just get more hamstring involvement. Like, I feel deficit deadlifts light my hamstrings up. In fact, I'd say that they're really good for building up hamstrings that are a little bit weak. So what I would look at is start looking at your hip position and ask yourself, are you squatting deeper just because, again, it feels like you need to? Or are you squatting down deeper because it's actually giving you an advantage when doing the lift? And you better think that through carefully. Part of what a mild deficit does is that it teaches us to get tighter in the bottom, right? It teaches us to use more hamstring and more glute out of the bottom. But if you're finding yourself squatting down too much and you're putting your hips into an unusually low position, that's not necessarily what you want to do, right? That's not necessarily what you want to do, because you're not getting the same tightness that you would be getting. So I might recommend that you go find your ideal hip position on your normal deadlift and then see if you can replicate that on the deficit deadlift. And maybe you might have to go an inch lower. But the whole point there is that it forces you to get tighter. And like I said, if you're squatting down too much, you're not really getting tighter And so you're not getting the full benefit of doing the deficit deadlift. So you might want to readjust that and find a more ideal hip position, because you want it to carry over to your conventional deadlift. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.